You're watching Reason and Theology, a show dedicated to evangelizing non-Catholics and helping Catholics better understand their faith. All right, Dr. Goff, you're up. What do you think here about the afterlife when it comes to eternal punishment?
Well, I think it's part of a matter of definition. It seems as though beyond both states being determined at one's death and beatitude being the intuitive awareness of the divine essence, along with the bliss and happiness that comes along with this in a perpetual or everlasting state on the one hand, and damnation being simply defined as the absence of this kind of relationship. There seems to be a wide range of speculation that could enter into this realm, and so I consider myself, one who is happily willing to go along with the Catechism in these two very basic definitions, while leaving a great deal of space in between to begin to speculate. And so I see myself more as a kind of fly on the wall, maybe poking questions in here and there, basically beginning with what seems to be the pretty clear presentation in the Catechism about the distinction and the perpetuity or everlastingness of the state of being in the state of being in or experiencing the beatific vision, and not being in or experiencing the beatific vision. From Hart's book and the very strong critiques that he brings to the infernalist position, I think it serves as a great impetus to begin considering one's position. And I think from my critique or my concern is that many of the objections, because with Matthew, I'm not able to wade directly into the questions of Greek exegesis and the ambiguities of the Greek terms for the age or eternity or everlasting. And I'm also aware, thanks to an excellent review by Trent Pomplin of Hart's book, that the Latin terms for the same as translated in the Vulgate and then used and employed by later Latin theologians also has a wide semantic range. And so it seems to me that I'm not going to be able, like Matthew, to move into the realm of direct discourse on the very points of the New Testament. But I think in some sense that is not the heart of the matter. I think the presentation is more founded on a philosophical conception of what it means to be God, what it means to be a good God, and then what it means to be a rational agent. And I think in certain ways, Scotistic distinctions may be able to push back. I'm thinking especially of the Scotistic presentation of contingency, and also the Scotistic understanding of the will as a rational power. And so I think certain aspects of Hart's presentation wouldn't necessarily knock down a Scotistic approach to these questions, because the Scotistic distinction between, say, an elicited or an unelicited act, while still maintaining the affirmation that both, in a sense, are within the realm of natural desire, save for fulfillment with respect to, say, the powers of intellect and will. Those distinctions can be made and then used to explain how one could affirm a distinction then between experiencing an everlasting state of supernatural bliss versus experiencing an everlasting state of being out of that situation. I think also a couple of points with respect to the Scotistic, and I think broadly Greek patristic understanding of the divine essence as a positive infinity is helpful, because what this allows for is it allows for their perpetual or absolute distinction between creator and creature, and nevertheless achieving a certain state of perfection or fulfillment in God, but nevertheless saying that fulfillment in God is just what it is. It undergoes no more, no further deepening, no further progression within a relative state of perfection. And I think what flows out of certain considerations like this are is the doctrine of epictosis. And so what I'm going to toss out is that while it seems to me that the biblical language of the time of pilgrimage, especially the metaphors of bride and bridegroom, kingdom, everlasting kingdom, those seem to be something that posits an unchanging state or status. Nevertheless, within those two states, I think there's a wide degree of application of what Scotus might call, with respect for the saved, the application of the principle of mitigation, something that Dr. Meinert mentioned earlier. But I think Scotus perhaps allows us a little bit further room to speculate when he says that, those who are reprobated through no fault of their own can achieve a state of knowledge and happiness about the natural world that exceeds even the philosophers. And so I think you might be able to then, by analogy, speak of the potential infinity of an everlasting state, where there's a kind of terrestrial epictosis and a mitigation of, say, the positive punishment, and a rectification that this is something that is fitting, and we recognize the justice of God in the perpetuity of the state of not being in blessedness. But nevertheless, it pushes back against perhaps the cartoonish notions of hell, where all hell is equally bad and equally positive in its torment, without any kind of mitigation or relief from this state. So, my position is more speculative, and it's based basically in the teaching of the Catechism and seemingly the common opinion of this. And I know that some say that the majority or the common opinion is usually wrong, and that makes me feel okay, because I can therefore feel more secure in my lack of acceptance immediately of certain positions with regard to historical criticism or certain trends in modern theology, because the majority is probably often wrong. I would note that an interesting implication, though, given the reality of historical criticism and a Christological approach, that is one that is commonly called more from below, is that many question whether or not Christ had the beatific vision, or Christ had the infused gifts and the infused knowledge necessary to carry out his mission, making him more on a par with the average guy. I think what's interesting is that in the presentation of Hart, he makes a very strong correlation between knowledge and freedom, such that if there is insufficient knowledge, and it's difficult to specify what the threshold of sufficient knowledge versus insufficient knowledge is, if there's this strict correlation, well then, if Christ did not possess a gnomic will, well then he must have had sufficient knowledge. But if such knowledge is one that is absolute or perfect or sufficient, such that there is no place for deliberation or uncertainty, well, then that seems to me, then we've got to go back and revisit the age-old claims about Christ's knowledge with respect both to beatific knowledge, but also perhaps, and more immediate or proximate to the discussion, the infused gifts, such as knowledge of what is included in God's providential ordering of history, salvation history, but also knowledge, certain knowledge of natural kinds, because if Christ is to have perfect freedom and lack utterly gnomic will, then his knowledge must be a requisite such that it justifies this absence of deliberation and uncertainty. So, those are my more speculative observations, and I think perhaps some of these things can be more unpacked later on as we proceed.
Oh wait, before you go, I would really appreciate it if you would consider supporting this channel. This is my primary means to provide for my family, and it also helps me to produce content like this video. If you would like to support me, become a patron by visiting patreon.com/Reason and Theology. You'll also get access to extra exclusive content when you become a patron. Lastly, hit that like button and the subscribe button, and be sure to leave a comment down below. God bless.